I know a lot of people don't trust security and intelligence agencies. And I know that when you read the history of some of these organizations, it's not hard to see why. So even though I used to work for an intelligence agency and I've seen firsthand a lot of the good work that they do, and I'm generally supportive of, the idea of countries needing good intelligence agencies, I get it. I'm sympathetic to the fact that their history in some cases has been so dodgy that it really makes it hard for people to trust them going forward. So I want to talk to you today about a book I've read. It's called A Communist for the RCMP. Now, if you don't trust security and intelligence agencies, there is no reason for you to read this book. It's pretty damning. It's a really, really tough read, actually, in a lot of ways. So it's nonfiction. It's about this guy named Frank Hattisbeck, who was, if not the longest RCMP informant, definitely one of. He was an informant for them right from the late 1940s up until the 80s. And remember, at this time, CSIS didn't exist. It was the RCMP security services, and they were who was handling domestic intelligence activities for, basically almost all of the 20th century. And so the author goes through the work that Hattisbeck did, and Hattisbeck joined the Communist Party and was a member for decades, and obviously wasn't a communist. He joined them so he could inform on them for the RCMP. And Frank Hattisbeck, he did it for the money. He had a rough childhood, went through the depression, itinerant worker, like not a lot of opportunities, not a lot of education. So for him, it was the financial incentive, really, that led him to become an informant. And so the problem when you have a financial incentive, and that's really your main incentive, is that you have a reason to keep providing information that will get you money, even if that information isn't all that great. So I think the thing I found, like, there's a lot that's hard to read in this book. But one of the things I found most devastating was the level of ignorance and incompetence that the RCMP security services displayed in the context of what happened in this book. Okay, so I'll try to confine myself just to this book. But it was incredible. I mean, what comes across quite clearly is that the average person, like the handlers, they had no idea the difference between communism and socialism, for example, or political discourse and political subversion. It's like they drew this line in the sand, and if you were to the left of it, in their minds, you got a file opened on you. So what comes across in this book is it's like, they were active and very actively anti-union, anti-labor movement, anti-indigenous rights, anti-LGBTQ+, which I've talked about in another video about the fruit machine, anti-civil rights, and so they were very political. And so if you didn't fit what the RCMP powers that be, how that filtered down, that didn't really come across much in this book, that the RCMP went after you and they opened up a file. So they just, and like the names, like the famous Canadians that appear in this book, like Farley Mowat, Pierre Burton, like the RCMP had files on all these people. And actually, what's like another one that kind of blew my mind is, civil rights. Civil security was also something the RCMP was completely suspicious of. And they had this massive file on Tommy Douglas. Tommy Douglas, now he's basically considered a national hero, right? I mean, he's the man who brought us universal health care, which the majority of Canadians are fully in support of. And it's like one of our most cherished institutions. And here you read that the RCMP had thousands of pages file on him, And so it's really brutal. And I have to say, as hard as it was to read, it was well worth it. I mean, it's super well researched. So the informant, Frank Hattisbeck, despite being told not to, kept a journal for the entire time he was an informant, and the author got access to that. So he had all these original notes, and then he accessed other primary sources. He did a lot of ATIP requests to the RCMP as well. Not that they, it's like the stuff he showed seemed quite redacted, but in any case, it is very well researched, and it's a good read. And I think for me, I do think that the idea of history not repeating itself, and let's not make the same mistakes again. In order to not make the mistakes again, you have to know what they are. And as awful and hard and shameful as some of this history is for the RCMP security services, it's something that needs to be put out there. It's not going to undermine people's confidence, because if you already don't trust them, like, putting this out there isn't going to make you trust them less. And it's a way for if you I think anyway, if you shine the light on it, if you sit with those skeletons, if you're uncomfortable with them and you get to know them, that's how you move forward from this history, and that's how you not repeat it. So, well worth it. It's a really interesting book. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, hope everyone's doing wonderful.